over the years had people approach me and say, hey, that conversation that we had, like that mattered. So I think one of my catalyst superpowers is helping people see things differently. Like I've said, being able to help them just shift their angle of view a little bit and gain insight and make progress. And when people come back to me and say that that was meaningful for them, like having had an impact on an individual life, like that, I'm super proud of that. So.
Hi, I'm Tracy Lovejoy.
And I'm Shannon Lucas. We are the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to empowering Catalyst to create bold, powerful change in the world.
This is our podcast, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, where we speak with Catalyst executives about ways to successfully lead transformation in large organizations.
And today we are very excited to have time with our friend, Jason Fraser. Jason, welcome.
Hi.
Good to
I'm
have
excited
you.
to be here. Yeah.
Just a little bit of background, and then I'm going to let Jason introduce himself and tell his own story. But Jason is a product and design leader with a mission to save the world. Amen. Yes. He spent the last few years building and operating a 60-person team of product and design consultants, helping clients identify, build, and deliver high-value software products for people who need them. He's also, and we'll talk about this, the co-author of Farther, Faster, and Far Less Drama, an actionable guide to equip a new generation of humble, humane, and collaborative leaders. And I have to share, I just felt like the book was so spiritually, philosophically, tactically, practically aligned with the work that we do in our book. I'm just thrilled to have you here today.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, the feeling about the books, it's a mutual love here. When I read Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, I was like amazed that we haven't been best friends for 15 years.
100%. And then when we got to do the
much.
Catalyst happy hour, it was even more clear. Totally.
Yeah.
All right. So I gave the cliff notes, but we'd love to hear about your catalytic journey. Maybe a few career highlights that you're proud of that helps us see that catalyst journey that you've been walking.
Yeah, great. Well, I mean, you kind of summed up a lot of the career. So the last, I'm going to say 10 years or so, I've been working in product and design leadership at a consulting organization. And really the last 7 years of that, I've been focused exclusively on working with government clients. And most of that has been with the federal government. Some of it has been with state and local governments as well. And I think, when we're talking about things that we're proud of, I mean, these folks in the government have been doing really incredible work. I had the opportunity to help a team of people from the Air Force set up the very first software innovation lab for the DoD.
Great story in the book, by the way.
Oh, yep, thanks. It was, I mean, it was such an honor and a privilege to be able to help these people set this up. And it was profoundly disruptive to the way the DoD acquires software. They were building it for themselves instead of hiring another large, vendor to do it for them, which was typical. They would contract something out. They'd spend years gathering requirements, and then bring in a vendor. And the vendor would spend 10 years building the software, and it would be hundreds of millions of dollars. And eventually they would deliver it, and it would be out of date already, or it wouldn't work the way people expected it to work, and there would be change orders and more money. And really what the Air Force was trying to do was to be able to control their own destiny with software and to be able to deliver product features at the speed of combat, right? Where you can't wait 10 years for a feature to be delivered because people are getting hurt right now. And so it was really, really special to be able to have that opportunity. Another thing, my wife and co-author and I have been leading workshops at the White House for the Office of Presidential Personnel. We've done that through 2 presidential administrations. We're about to do another one in July. That is also one of those things that I'm just super proud of. And honestly, walking through the Secret Service checkpoint to get onto the grounds at the White House, that never gets old. You get through that checkpoint and you're like, okay, I'm here, I'm doing this. And the people who were helping in those workshops are, again, doing just really meaningful work, work that, we had a team last time who was trying to get a better understanding of why there were so many veterans of color who were not taking advantage of all of their veterans benefits, particularly the death benefit. And like they wanted to help people take better advantage of benefits that were owed to them for their service. And like you can't beat that.
Right.
You know?
What
It's
is more
like,
meaningful than that? Fuck,
yeah.
Jason.
And like if we can help those people see their work in a different way, like give them just a little bit of insight that helps them make progress in that work, like that's profoundly life-changing. Yeah. So that's the stuff I'm proud of, is those opportunities to like really do stuff that matters. And one more thing, I have like over the years had people approach me and say, hey, that conversation that we had, like that mattered. And that's a thing that I'm also super proud of. Like, I feel like one of my, I don't know, if we're talking about being a catalyst, I think one of my catalyst superpowers is helping people see things differently. Like I've said, being able to help them just shift their angle of view a little bit and gain insight and make progress. And when people come back to me and say that that was meaningful for them, like having had an impact on an individual life, like that, I'm super proud of that. So.
You go.
So what is the topic of the workshops that you are leading, right? When you work with White House personnel?
Yeah, so we do a standard lean startup assumptions and experiments workshop with folks at the White House. And this is something that we started doing, Janice and I, my wife and co-author, we started doing this when we ran an accelerator program, which we founded back in 2010. And we were working with early stage founders who often were sent to us by their investors. Their investors were like, you're really good at software and you've got a really interesting idea, but you don't know how to turn this into a product. So I'm going to send you to the Frasers and they're going to like run you through their program. And so we worked a lot with Eric Ries, who is kind of the founder of the Lean Startup movement. And we started doing these workshops for our startup founders that would help them identify the riskiest assumptions in the work that they were trying to embark upon, and then validate that those assumptions were true. So the idea was to find the holes in your strategy before they become harmful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you can do a long version over days, or you can do a short version. We do a short version that's about 90 minutes at the White House, and we just knock through a brainstorming session around assumptions. We assess the risk level of those assumptions, and then we teach people how to devise a really quick experiment that will help them validate whether or not that assumption is true.
Amazing.
And yeah, we get very positive feedback on it. People come back and they're like, this changes everything, like changes how I'm thinking about this. So
I love that.
yeah.
And does it relate to your book at all, Farther, Faster, and Far Less Drama, the workshop, or a big pivot for you?
So it's all related. We've been doing this kind of work for such a long time.
Yeah.
It's all kind of ingrained. And the Farther, Faster, and Far Less Drama, the book started as a facilitation tools book when we were first thinking about it. And we had an agent. We were very lucky to have a really, really interesting agent who pushed us a lot and said, no, I think this book is bigger than that. I think this is an idea book, not just a tools and techniques book.
Nice.
And so we started kind of abstracting the ideas out of the tools and bringing it to a higher level. But the assumptions and experiments workshop used to be the workshop that we would run during our facilitation tools training session to teach people. So we would like run this workshop, and then we would go back and sort of at the meta level talk about, here's what we did when we worked you through this workshop, and here's why this workshop works. And here's how, the brainstorming, the pattern of externalize, organize, focus, which like the pattern or the way that people do it comes kind of from design thinking, this idea that you can like brainstorm. But I think when people come at it from the design thinking lens, they're often thinking about it in terms of creativity, like this is a tool to be creative. And we take it and we shift it into this is a tool to be productive, right? This is about taking anything that's inside your head, putting it into a workable space, organizing it in a meaningful way, and then focusing on the parts that matter. And so we did this facilitation training workshop where we talked about all of this stuff and how people could leverage this stuff to make progress with their teams. Really, Farther, Faster, and Far Less Drama is a book about making progress. And it's based on all this experience that we have with helping teams, from all the way from the early stage startups through the White House and the DoD and all of this stuff. Janice works with a bunch of Fortune 100 companies and things like that. And it's about how we have helped those teams make progress.
It's incredibly inspiring to get to hear, kind of snippets across your professional journey and how you are shifting people and mindsets and behaviors. And we haven't had you define, like, what does catalyst mean to you? How do you relate to this concept?
Yeah, I mean, I love the term catalyst. As a linguistics person, I come from a linguistics background. All my education was in linguistics, and I've done classes on metaphors. I wrote a paper on Zapotec body metaphors, which was really cool. Actually, Tracy, you might be interested in that one.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know what that means, Jason. What is that?
Yeah, well, okay. They use parts of the body as location metaphors and even as time metaphors. So we won't spend just a second on this. If you want to say hello to someone, it's basically good day. You say Zak Chi, right? And Chi is day and Zak is like good or nice or whatever. But if it's midday, you say Zak Le'eji, and Le'en means belly in Zapotec. And
what is that? I don't know what Zapotec is.
Zapotec is an indigenous language spoken in Oaxaca, southern Mexico.
Thank you.
And so Le'en means belly. So if you want to say good afternoon, you're saying like good middle of the day, good belly of the day, right? And they have multiple other metaphors where they're like using the hand as a metaphor. And most of them are locative in some way, like they indicate a location or sort of metaphorically a location in time or things like that. So beginning, middle, end, from head to toe, that kind of thing. Anyway, super cool stuff.
It is. I'm going to hazard a guess, and we don't have to go down it, that study helped you think about how to teach, right? Because I'm hearing it even in your meta way you were teaching people to facilitate.
Yeah.
Super interesting to see those dots. So thank you for throwing that in.
Yeah, of course. And I use metaphor all the time, just in trying to help people understand concepts, because I think it's like it gives you a cognitive hook to like hang the idea on, right? So anyway, the metaphor of catalyst, right? A catalyst is a thing that triggers a reaction.
Yep.
It's not the thing that reacts. Right. So heat is the catalyst to create fire. Heat causes the oxidation of carbon. Right. And so it's the carbon that changes and it's the oxygen that changes. And it just so happens that that's an exothermic reaction. So it creates more heat, which means as long as there's carbon and oxygen present, you're going to continue driving that reaction. And I think as a human catalyst, right, we are the heat. Like, it's our role to come in and we take the organization that's like the log or the lump of coal, the bit of carbon, and we trigger a reaction in that organization that makes a state change, right? That it is completely different after that reaction is triggered. And if we're lucky, the reaction generates more heat and is self-sustaining. So we talked about finding other catalysts in an organization and helping to trigger those other catalysts, right? That's what heat does in fire. The fire makes more heat while it's oxidizing the carbon, and that additional heat oxidizes more carbon, right? And so the fire just keeps going.
Mhm.
And I like to be the person who brings the match. You know, I'm the person who's like, yeah, nice log. What if we had a fire? You know?
I can see the transformative power of that piece of wood. Yes, I
Yeah,
can.
yeah.
Amazing. So most of us experience some challenges along the way. I'm just wondering if you can share, one or two of the challenges that you faced as a Catalyst executive and what's helped you most in overcoming those challenges.
Yeah, awesome. So I think a big challenge when you're trying to drive change in an organization is people's reception to that change, right? You often catalysts are brought in from the outside. Someone in the organization sees a need for change and they say, I'm going to bring in somebody to help drive this thing. And that person comes in, and if they're not careful, they can be perceived as a really significant threat by everyone in the organization, up and down, right? So you come in and there are leaders in that organization who have been leaders sometimes for decades. And they're looking at you going, wait, you're telling me that I'm doing this wrong? Like, you can't tell me how to do my job. So right off the bat, you're insulting an entire class of people just by your very presence, right? And then you've got all the line level people in the organization, the people who like do the work. And when those people hear the word change, the first thing that they hear is reorg, and reorg automatically like translates to reduction in force. So they're like, oh, change, I'm going to lose my job, right? So you've got this one class of people who's just pissed off that you're there because you're telling them that they've been doing it wrong. And then you've got another class of people who are there who are terrified that any recommendation that you make is going to result in them losing their job. And so
Is there any winning, Jason? How do you overcome that? Damn, that sounds hard.
Yes, this is a lot to deal with. And I think, this maps to your experience in organizations as well. And so, Janice and I, when we're working with teams, we have this thing that we talk about in the book. We call it UBAD, and it's UBAD. And it stands for understanding, belief, advocacy, and decision making. And I think when you want to drive change, you need to make sure that people both understand what is happening and believe in it. And if people don't understand or believe, they will remain either frightened or insulted, right? And so it's like, I think Cotter, Cotter is one of the big transformational writers, right? Has like done a lot of work in this area and talks about sort of helping people understand the need for change, right? And I think that is absolutely essential. Like, you have to start helping people see the problems and see how things could be better, right? And in working with the Air Force, like, the people who started that program, the program was called Kessel Run and still exists. And they saw real problems. They saw people dying because of bad software and bad process. And they put everything on the line in terms of their careers in order to make change so that those bad things didn't happen anymore. And for them, the pain of the current situation, the pain of the status quo was obvious, right? And I've seen people, I won't say which organizations I've seen them in, but I think this is actually common for several, who have like custom built software that's supposed to be, suited directly for their purpose, but they do all their work in Excel and PowerPoint and SharePoint, and then they literally will translate that work into the system of record later. And you shouldn't have to do that anywhere. And you especially shouldn't have to do stuff like that when like every minute that goes by while you're doing your work process means that somebody else could die, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
ultimate consequences of failure here. And so these folks at the Air Force, really like saw the pain. And so educating the founders of this organization was not an issue. But there were people in other parts of the DoD, the software security folks, the acquisitions people, like all of these people are going, this is not how we do this, right? And there's a reason, by the way, that we do this the way that we do it. And so one, we had to help those folks understand the pain that was being experienced, and how their process was actually shipping risk to the people who were on the front line. And we had to give them a vision for what better could look like.
Yeah.
And we had to work with them, not at them. And we talk about this in the book too. You got to work with people, not work at people, because you work at people and they just want to push back, right? But if you work with them, then you're side by side the whole way. So we had to work with people in the security organization and in the procurement organization, in order to demonstrate to them how the organization could meet the spirit of the rules. And in some cases better than other people who were meeting the letter of the rules, but not necessarily the spirit. Like, we had to demonstrate that the process that we were using to make our software secure and stable was a good process and did achieve the outcomes that their rules were trying to achieve, but we didn't actually follow the rules to get there. And so it was a lot of bringing people along. So one, developing the understanding of the risk. Two, developing the belief in our path, the belief that the way that we were doing it was actually okay, and maybe even way better. And the A and the D, I'll go back to UBAD, understanding, belief, advocacy, and decision-making. You know that you have understanding and belief when you start seeing people independently advocate for your solution, right? So when people are saying, hey, this is the path that we should be on, when that catalyst contagion, catches up, mixing metaphors there, when the reaction spreads, when you get more heat, right? That's the advocacy, right? And then you really know when people start making decisions. This is when people with authority start saying, I'm spending my money here, right? We are investing our time, we are investing our energy. We're shifting staff from here to here, right? When you see people who are actually making decisions that support the path, then you know that you're all in. People talk a lot about buy-in, do we have buy-in from this person or buy-in from that person? And really, it was Janice who came up with UBAD because she was so frustrated with people saying, well, I really thought that we had buy-in, but then we just didn't have the buy-in that we thought we had. And it's like, well, how did you know? Why did you think that you had buy-in?
Right. What does buy-in even mean? Brass tacks, totally. And I love in the book, I love the example that you have about, I think they were a medical provider, and they had this new product, and he goes, and that example actually walks through the whole UBAD thing. But so he takes his customers on a journey. It's this massive piece of equipment that all of his customers like, I'll do, and they're like, we're signing up to buy them. But then he's like, do you have the space in your place, in your institution, in your building? Because you're going to probably need to build a new space, right? And it's like something that I wouldn't have thought about in terms of like that last level of buy-in. All right, before I hand it over to Tracy though, I have to talk about painful step for a catalyst number 3 and how you deal with it, because it can take so long of us doing the belief cultivation, the understanding and the belief cultivation, and encountering a lot of resistance as we do that. And there does come this weird switch when your words that you weren't allowed to say 18 months ago start coming out of other people's mouths. I'm just thinking, like, I find that super frustrating as a catalyst. Like, how do you self-manage, and what advice would you have for a catalyst at that stage?
I mean, let's be honest, that happens more to women than it does to white men.
Interesting. Thank you for that.
I don't need to tell you that. That's probably been your experience. But there's this whole notion of, I think it was some president or general or somebody who said you can get a whole lot done as long as you don't care who gives credit or who gets credit for it. And yeah, that's true. I derive my value from individuals who come up to me and say, I mentioned this before, that interaction that we had mattered to me. Like a thing that you did changed things for me in a positive way. And organizational credit is nice. But for me, it's non-essential. My leadership journey at the last company that I was at took a very, very long time. And it was one of those organizations where roles in leadership were constrained, right? And like people didn't leave the company very often. So it was like somebody had to die in order to open up a slot, at the leadership level.
Literally though, yeah.
And so promotions were tough. And I was, I had come into the organization at a leadership level. And then for reasons that we won't get into here, I stepped away from that role and into an individual contributor role for a couple of years. And it was really difficult to get the organization to see the kind of contribution that I was making there and move my way back into a leadership role.
Yeah.
But then I had one really great boss who was like, I see you, like I've been watching you since you got here, and like I'm starting a new thing. Do you want to join me in my new thing? And I was ready to leave at that point, and this one person basically saved my career at that organization, and I was able to get back into a leadership role and really do the thing that I felt like I was there to do. But again, my experience is always going to be that of a white guy, and I think that it is it's hard for me to speak to the challenges that other people see in that role, because it's just different.
I appreciate it so much. So one, for our listeners, if you are a manager or you're managing managers in your organizations, everyone knows that employees don't leave companies, they leave managers. But that's a 10x thing for catalysts, because we can be so misunderstood and be perceived as the troublemaker. So having that person who really sees you, we will follow them. I've done that. I followed, one guy through 4 organizations, because like without having the word, I just knew that he could unlock me and get me the container that you're talking about to do what I was supposed to do there. And also like side projects that I was able to do because of that. And I want to go back to the self-promotion just really quickly, because it's like, it's important for catalysts to hear this. It's like, yes, when the people are, do you say advocating? The A, I always forget the A. Advocating. When the people are advocating for your thing, it can be bittersweet, because you're like, oh, finally it's coming out of their mouths. And so like there's the hurrah of we've broken through the some of the resistance. And it can feel also really bad, because you're like, it's been 18 months and I'm not here to do self-promotion. I just want the thing to get done. But the scars, the metaphoric scars that we have on our back from having like gone through all of the resistance, it's like, damn, I took all the hits. And catalysts often won't do any of the promotion because they're just like, I just want the thing to be done. But the thing I want catalysts to hear is the position that you found yourself in because of your humility is that there weren't people who understood your value around the organization. And so just a quick story, there's this one guy that we love in our network, and he was very senior and he was a servant leader, and he led this big transformation throughout the company. And his goal was to do that and level up all of his people. And so a bunch of his direct reports became peers. And then a C-suite position opened, and he wasn't even really considered. And he was like, I don't understand why I wasn't considered. And he's like, well, these people all did the transformation. Like, he had done such a good job of highlighting everyone else, which is a tool to create change. But like, if you want permission to create the next level of big, bold change, you have to do some of it, right? So I guess as a final question, any advice on how to do that really quickly, how to do that in a way that feels authentic to you?
Well, I think one of the things that I took away from the Catalyst class that I took with y'all recently was the notion of breadcrumbing, right?
Yeah.
And like leave a trail, like there should be evidence of the work that you have done. And I thought that was really interesting conceptually. And of course, I love the metaphor because metaphors. But I think, one of the things that I did in our, like, Janice and I joined this company that I was at the same time. We were basically acquired by this company, and we started a transformation effort there without really calling it a transformation effort. We just started offering this facilitation tools training. Mentioned the training kind of at the beginning of our session here today, and we just offered it to anybody who wanted it. And there was always an invitation not to buy. It's like, you don't have to come. If you're not interested, just, don't come. But if you are interested, we're doing it on Tuesday. So come join us. And, we thought we'd do like 2 or 3 of these things. And it turned out that the demand for it just kept getting bigger. And so, I mean, through my time there, I probably trained over 350 people. And Janice trained, almost that many as well in her time there. And that was a thing where it was really obvious that like Janice and Jason are doing that thing.
That's right.
Now, you could go to an office anywhere in the world. We had offices in 22 countries. You could go to an office and you could see Post-it notes and 2x2s on the wall and know those came from us. Like that's there because we taught people how to do that stuff. And that was really interesting in terms of sort of visible impact. Like the breadcrumbs were big.
Right.
All over.
Almost a brand identity you created internally, I would say.
Yeah. And
awesome.
we have been credited with by other people. It's not a thing that I would say myself necessarily, but other people have said that we changed the way this company approached product. And we changed the way this company collaborated with each other. So we got credit for that. And we got credit because the thing that we were doing was visible. Right. One, we had people constantly asking their managers, hey, can I sign up for this training next week? Like, I want to take a day and go do this training. So everybody heard about it. And 2, there was visible evidence in every office in the world that we had this impact. And so, some changes, it's not easy to have evidence that is like literally on the wall that you can see.
Totally.
Right? But
artifacts are important. I think it is a really interesting way. Like, when at Vodafone we created these like business cards just for the Innovation Catalyst, and everyone wanted them, right? And just like that, and they had to be part of the club. It was the same thing. You don't have to join. So I think the artifacts can really help. Totally. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Tracy for the final fun question.
As we wrap up this amazing conversation today, Jason, we'd love to hear about your favorite catalyst, past, present, alive, dead, someone who has inspired you and why they stand out.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I talked about my Air Force folks a lot already. I'll just like circle back to them really quickly and then switch to another one. So I've got 2 that matter. There was a very small cadre of people: Brian, Adam, Tori, Enrique, Jeremiah, all like enlisted Air Force, officers, but uniformed Air Force people who were so inspiring to me in the way that they, like I said, they put it all out there to make a big change that really mattered. And they had a hell of a fight. And there were so many people who were out to shut them down, out to take their budget, out to make them adhere to the status quo. And they just they ran circles around those people. And it was really incredible to watch. So I really admire that group of people and feel privileged to have been able to work with them. Otherwise, I've always been drawn to like the edge of things. normal stuff is just too normal for me. Even as a little kid, like we would drive through downtown Minneapolis and I would see punk rockers on the street with their 10-inch mohawks, and I'd be like,
My
that's cool.
people.
Yeah. And the second I heard the music, I was all in, right? And as I got older and learned more about the music and the history of that music, and I was listening to bands like Black Flag and Minor Threat and Dead Kennedys and all of these people, and they were and there were people who came before them as well, right? Who were all kind of breaking the mold. But bands in this genre were really just totally upending the music industry. Many of them, I mean, the three that I mentioned all started their own record labels just as a like screw you to the record industry, because they were like, we can put music out, right? And I think what musicians in this genre showed was that anybody could make music, and they broadened the possibilities for who you could be in the world and how you could be in the world.
Mm.
And I think for a lot of people, myself included, the expression in the music was more authentic to who they were than the standard pop pablum that was out there. And like, I value the fact that that music was able to make people who were already on the edge feel like they were validated, right? So I think they were disruptors in an industry. But the thing that I really care about, that really touches me, is that they change people's lives.
Bringing us right back to the beginning of our conversation, right? So thank you for that beautiful circle around the combination of disruption, but doing it in a way that's really connecting people to change lives. Jason, this has been an unbelievable treat to have this time with you today. Thank you so much for being here with us.
It's been fun. Yeah, let's talk again.
Oh, I think the conversation is for sure just beginning. I've no doubt, no doubt. And thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about how to create bold, powerful change in the world, be sure to check out our book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, or go to our website at www.catalystconstellations.com.
If you enjoyed the episode like we did, we could continue talking for hours. Please take 10 seconds to rate it on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And of course, if you have other catalysts in your life, hit the share button their way, send the link to them, and particularly for those punk rock catalysts out there, they might appreciate this conversation. Thanks again.